I'll be honest, it is hard to be a citizen of the United States these days. Because if you have been a citizen of the United States and you've paid attention to our country and how our country dealt with things for several decades, and not just like read the headlines, but actually knew something. And I've been to law school, I've studied law, I'm an attorney, and so I understand how the Constitution works and how the government's supposed to work. And I have been just frankly confused by the whirlwind of what is going on. Now, I don't want to label it incompetent. Actually, maybe I do, but I am not going to, because I'm not talking about whether these are bad decisions. They're bad decisions. But it is frustrating and it's confusing because you're supposed to have a government. I don't care if people say, you want to be a libertarian and live on a boat that might be attacked by pirates? That is your prerogative. If you want to go and live on 80 acres in Michigan in a forest where you have a river and you've stored cans and Quonset huts and you're very good. I don't. Most people cannot do this. And we need a government in order to bring order, make sure certain things happen, and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And what has happened in the last 2 months is hardly that. For example, I have just heard that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has suspended testing milk quality tests to see if it's okay because they have had budget cuts and a workforce cut. Well, if people are going to sell milk, who's going to check it? Are we going to allow private industry to do it, the market to do it? Because the market will save money. Read Sinclair Upton's The Jungle, and you learn about what happened to meat markets and meat products before the government intervened. And now we're cutting back on our government because, it's supposed to be cost saving. But we need it more because it's more complicated, more stretched out, and more defined by greed. For example, we have the National Institute of Health cutting back. We are more international. We're getting more diseases from all over. We need to have the protection and we need to have the screening. The Department of Education, for instance, they're cutting it and they are getting rid of, they're making people pay back their student loans, which, that's the price. That's another issue right there. But when they cut back on things, they're cutting back on the people at the Department of Education so that people do not understand how this affects their lives. If you are running a service and you are making sure things happen, you have to make sure things happen. You make sure people are there to make sure things happen. Like, for example, there's this joke about a credit card company that will give you customer service, except there is only one person at the customer service and they never answer the phone, and if they do, they say, hold, I've got to do something else. That is not customer service, and customer service is a part of the government. We are also getting rid of people in the IRS. So that means we're not going to collect as many taxes, and if you have questions about your taxes or you have to figure out a refund, who are you going to call? Well, you're not going to call the 10,000 people who have been fired. Now, before I met Danish girlfriend, and there's the blessing and a curse. Before I met Danish girlfriend, I just assumed, well, this is the way our government is. It's a little inefficient. It is a little illogical and perhaps a little corrupt. And I just said, well, that's the way it is. That's the American way. It's like, Boss Tweed, Huey Long, all these people are on the take. But when I talked to Danish girlfriend and she showed me things about Denmark, I thought, wait a second, Denmark, there's always going to be inefficiencies when you do a process because, maybe someone's sick and doesn't get a paper in on time. So things like that happen, but not the way things are going in the United States. The United States could take a page out of Denmark's view of government is a necessity, government is for the society, and the society is the important thing, not just making you feel better or living with this desire. It's like, wait a second, big government's bad. Let's get rid of big government. Wait a second, who's protecting me? Well, big government's protecting you. That's right. Now, here's the problem with Danish girlfriend. I now know that there's a different way of approaching a complex social issue, whether it's taxes or medicine or education. So I go, well, now I feel even worse because the United States not only is corrupt, inefficient, and generally illogical, but they don't have to be. Now, ignorance is bliss. I grant you that. I'm just going to I am glad to know that there is an alternative, that things can get better. And that when I get upset about the United States government and our politicians, I know that it's not just a vacuous, a swirling mist of anger, or I go back into a sense of depression. I go, no, there really is something we can do. And if we do that, and if we approach things in the way the Danish government or other governments that do it, the other Scandinavian governments are, but I just happen to know Danish girlfriend. I am not in a relationship with a Norwegian or a Finnish or some other country. I am in a relationship with a Dane, and I'm very appreciative of it, not just because I get to know her. She's a sweetheart. So I know that if we do this, we will come up with a solution. Whatever that, I don't know what that solution will be. Here's the thing. This is another American thing. Donald Trump says, well, I'll just lower grocery prices. No, that's a solution. To fix a problem, you need a good process. And that is what we need in this country. And if some people would look at a country like Denmark, they would see that there is a process. It may be messy, but that process will give you the best decision and solution that there is possible. Not just swirling around in this chaotic mess that we have been in for the last 2 months. So it starts with me, and it starts with everyone out there who demands that we start to think clearly, not just aimlessly march up and down the street shouting at each other, but we need to come together. We need to think, and we need to put all the issues and all the desires and all the possible outcomes on the table and then think through it. And if we do that, perhaps our country, which has been a great country, will continue to do things properly, right, and get something done. Thank you kindly.